introduce in a few, and distinguished student leaders. It is an honor and a privilege to be the moderator of this particular upcoming topical session. Now, as we see on our program, we shall be having our first address from the one and only Advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Millie Lwaga. And our topic, or her topic, is accessing national and county governance structures for effective leadership. Now, she is currently an advisor to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, with the pillars of strategy, legal, and governance. She is an advocate and governance expert. She is a former vice chairperson of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and she is a former presiding member of the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. Now, what we expect to hear from her is on how to identify various ministries, agencies, and sectors that are oriented towards campus students' welfare. With a roaring round of applause, help me welcome to the podium Advocate Millie Lwaga. Let's appreciate her all the more.
I'm Jambo tena. Good afternoon. What is the greeting for young people nowadays? I've been hearing you say comrade. Huh? Chude. Okay, can you stand up and chude me then?
Chude.
That's chude me before we start.
Katonge.
Thank you very much. Now, I will not claim that I have the credentials to stand here and speak before academic giants, because when you're a student at the university, you are a giant as far as learning goes. But I will say that I have that little experience and niche and space that may allow me to be able to speak to you about certain issues, and I'll tell you briefly why I think so. Now, I'm sure that in this room, the number of people who are 30 years must be extremely few. And I have been working for 30 years. Now, I have been an advocate, of course, of the High Court in private practice, and that was a lot of fun. And then I have gone and done different things. I was a legal counsel at FIDA. Those were the days when FIDA was feared by men thoroughly, because when they saw us, they thought we were going to take all their money away. I moved from there and went and worked with different international organizations, among them different UN agencies. And then after the post-election violence in 2008, we were the team that was selected by the two brothers, President Mwai Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga, CGH, may their souls rest in peace, to form the first Cohesion and Integration Commission, where I worked as the vice chair. I then went to deal with issues of political parties, where I was the presiding member, which means like the head of bench 2, together with my colleague, may his soul rest in peace, Chalombobu. And after that, I went back to international organizations, and then now I am at the National Treasury. Now, given that vast movement across the various arms of government, the only arm of government that I've not worked in is the legislature. I thought it would be important for me to speak to you as we launch this great thing. And this great thing that we are launching today is thanks not just to the patronage of FCPA, John Badingongo, the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury. By the way, you need to be on top of things, and we say young people don't read. It is no longer National Treasury and Economic Planning. The President of the Republic of Kenya passed a paper where he named it as the National Treasury. So he's the cabinet secretary of the National Treasury. And he was able to grasp this idea because of 5 vibrant people amongst you here. That is Okech Solomon, Quinta Owimo, Sam Ougo, Alo Joel, and Obade George. Their hard work, their enthusiasm, their skill, their wish to have you participate in this process is why you're seated here today. And please give them a round of applause for that. Now, as student leaders, because National Treasury is here, it is not just the cabinet secretary, but the National Treasury team is here. And the Treasury team is here because they want to walk this journey of managing the financial resources of the country with you as students, to be able to ensure that you have a say, that your voices are heard, and that you're not just passengers in the vehicle that is pushing the national agenda forward. And it is for that reason that it is important for you to be able to understand how meaningfully you can grasp this opportunity. An opportunity that you're given is as good as the use you make of it. Now, one of the things that you will note is that sometimes you can have a great idea and you may want to do something with that idea, but if you don't know where to take it and you don't know who to engage with in as far as that idea is concerned, then the idea remains that. And I'm sure most of you have seen this common thing that people talk about your tombstone being written that Millie, here lies Millie, and the great many ideas that she had that never saw fruition. So it is important, and it must burn you as student leaders to want to know how best you can use this opportunity to engage in the budget process, both at implementation stage and also at the stage of actually developing or crafting the budget process. And in order for you to do that, you must understand governance. And when you understand governance, governance is simply what, and I'm sure that most of you know what governance is. Since one thing I didn't tell you about myself when I began my introduction is that I am a practicing Christian. Do you know what that means? Do you know what being a practicing Christian means? Yes, sir. I actually do. Yes. Someone else? A what? A walking Christian. Now, a practicing Christian is a person who fails every day and gets up every day to repeat their lives and to try and better themselves. And because I am that, I know that Christians believe in Sadaka. So we must changa. So when I'm speaking, I will ask you to changa into this conversation with me. So I want you to tell me, what is your understanding? Because that is your mchango. As far as Christianity goes, your Sadaka. What is in your understanding would governance be? Or how do you understand governance? There's no right answer, there's no right response. We are just putting our heads together. And you know my voice is actually very loud. So I can actually move from this podium. And when I come and stand beside you, you have to speak. So it's better you offer yourself before I come and stand there. Mike, who offers your understanding of governance? We have an offer here. The gentleman right here in front.
Well, I think governance is being part and taking responsibility in leadership.
Yes. That's an option, yes. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is James Lopeta from the University of Nairobi. Governance is a framework used by an organization or an institute so that everyone feels part, that their contribution is heard. So that's governor, according to my input.
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I think I had not introduced myself. I'm Kirutu Paul Samuel, a former Secretary General of Maseno University, and also standing in as a USPAC representative, as a youth and students coordinator for peace and security. Now, on governance, I can say that governance is, in another way, is a mode of leadership.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for those who have been brave enough to stand up and share. Now, governance is simply the system by which an organization, an institution, even with your, I'm not going to try and even say the name, but there was this famous organization here that stood up and introduced themselves. You have a structure, a way in which you govern yourselves, the rules that say how do you run. Now remember, it is important for you to understand the governance structure, both at national and county level. And not because you're going to go and sit an exam for it, but because you're leaders. And because you must understand these structures in order for you to go and engage with them and be able to push the agenda forward for the students whom you're leading. Now, that system of governance is generally the same. You'll find, for example, in all the ministries across the national government, there is a cabinet secretary, then there'll be a principal secretary. Some have one, some have two, some have three. So there'll be those principal secretaries, and those are the topmost decision makers or policy makers within those institutions. Then you'll find there are different other people that you need to engage with, director generals, directors, at different levels, depending on what issue you're pursuing at that particular stage. Now, one of the key ministries that I think is important for us to focus on is the Ministry of Education, because being students, issues education will come up. Remember that as we are implementing the budget, you will want to know, for example, how, as budget is being implemented, resources that are meant to support your agenda as students are being rolled out. As we are planning for the next budget, because remember we are actually at the mid stage almost, and I will not speak much to it because the CS will speak to you about it this afternoon, of actually developing the next budget, that you will be able to ensure that the Ministry of Education has put in place systems or processes or proposals that will protect your interests as students. And you know what those interests are. I will not speak to them. You know them better than I do. Remember that at the national level, you'll find that the Ministry of Education has got a scope. And the scope of that ministry is setting up the education policy, is setting up standards, is dealing with issues of curriculum, is dealing with issues of examination, granting of university charters, and universities generally. Now, why is it important for you as leaders to know this? So that you know where to address your issues. If it is an issue of money, is it a policy issue or is it an implementation issue? Do you want that issue to be changed? Do you want the government to change the mode that they are using to apply that policy, or do you want them to implement it better? So at what stage are you engaging with the government in this process? That is important for you as leaders to know. If you don't know, then the students you're with will not know. And if they don't know, then we have students getting agitated. And I'm sure most of you saw when we were working on the budget that we are currently implementing, a student who stood up to take on the cabinet secretary with a lot of false information that she had obtained from digital and social media. So this information is best received from you, and you have the capacity, the ability to be able to get that information. Now remember that at the national level, the Ministry of Education will of course handle, just to mention a few, higher learning, special education, promotion of sports and sports education, and then institutions of research, amongst others. Now, if you know the scope that they handle, then you will know the level and extent to which you can engage them in promoting the interests of students in as far as the budget is concerned. Let us not hear again, after you have this grand opportunity, as being the first people. And by the way, that list, if I were you, I would be taking pictures of the registration list so that I can frame it, so that one day, 20 years from now, you will say you are in the inaugural team of persons who said that students must be engaged and must be involved in the budget making process in this country, whether it's implementation or development stage. So once you have that understanding, you'll know at which space and which process you can engage the government with. Now, at the county level, remember that different counties have different titles. But before I go there, we know that at the county level, their issues basically is pre-primary education, village polytechnics, homecraft centers, farmers training centers, and childcare facilities. That's the scope of education that falls under the county government. But you will know that at the county level, you'll find they have a CEC, and you have to find what title that CEC has, because counties have named them differently. I took two examples. One, they call Skills Development and Care. That is Nairobi. That is where you will find someone who may deal with issues that concern you. In Nakuru, they have Education, ICT, E-Government, and Public Communication. So that is where you'll find that issues that concern matters that will affect the students that you lead fall under. At the national level, it's a little easier because you'll find there are 3 state departments under the Ministry of Education. One is the State Department for Basic Education, and that's as basic as I can go. And then there is the State Department for Vocational and Technical Training, and then there is the State Department for Higher Education and Research. So it becomes easy to know which state department you want to focus your issues on, and you want to be sure that what do you do with them, that you are involved as stakeholders. Remember that the budget process is not a mystery that is held at the National Treasury. National Treasury gives the guidelines. The National Treasury gives the parameters within which this should work. But before you come and point fingers at the National Treasury and say this is wrong, first be sure that you have engaged with the Ministry of Education at whatever level to ensure that your input, because those sectors go out and reach out to their stakeholders. Make sure that your student bodies are included as stakeholders, that they must tick in their box as having been included in their public participation forum for this engagement to be meaningful. Because we want this to grow from height to height. We want this to be a voice that everybody will be looking at what has happened or what has transpired in as far as the input from students is concerned when people are speaking budget and finance in this country. Now, when you look at the next ministry that I thought would be important to focus on is the Ministry of Health. Do you agree that it's key? Why? When I have spoken long for a few minutes, I must get Sadaka from you. Somebody contribute. Yes, sir. Please bring the mic in front.
Yeah, hello. It is important that we also discuss